Hi everybody, and welcome to another WeatherCastUSA Quickcast. On this Quickcast, we're going to break down the change from meteorological winter to meteorological spring. Look and see what meteorological spring has in store for severe weather. Alright, let's get into what probably a lot of you are here for. Let's take a look at the severe forecast for the change from meteorological winter to meteorological spring. And I will just note, it just happens to be looks like a major pattern switch for next week. It doesn't always correlate that with the very first couple days of meteorological spring, a pattern change like this, but it just happens to be this year. We are getting a pretty distinct pattern change as we approach the first couple days of meteorological spring. This is a look at the GFS Ensemble. It isn't just one run. It takes the averages of all the different GFS runs and helps average them out. And it gives us a little better indication of those, especially for this, the upper level pattern. This is the jet stream pattern at the 500 millibar height, and it helps just weed out any outliers. Each of the individual models have different members, and some of those could be outlier models. So this just helps get a better overall sense without accidentally looking at an outlier model. And very similar to what we were just saying a little bit ago in the video with the winter weather forecast. Winter is going to hold on across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast, essentially from the Ohio River Valley to the north for at least the next couple days. It's still going to feel pretty raw and cold, and you can see that jet stream pattern with a little bit of a ridge across the west and a little bit of a dip across the east, especially, again, the Northeast there. First couple clipper systems help reinforce this little trough with that high pressure, helping to funnel the cool air down across the Northeast. As well, we see a little bit of a ridge building back across, especially the southern plains. And then we see the next trough starting to dig in across the west as we get into early next week. Putting this into motion further, we can see how that, again, that system kind of helps lift a little bit of that cool air out. So we start to warm up by Tuesday and especially Wednesday with a little bit of a ridge building across the Gulf Coast and helping to funnel a little bit more moisture return up into the central states. And this is by later Tuesday and especially getting into Wednesday where we start to have to watch for some severe weather. And I don't think we're going to get a widespread, massive severe weather outbreak, at least these first couple days into meteorological spring, into March. But the pattern switch is conducive of a more active pattern with rounds of thunderstorms and also rounds of potentially some severe weather. By Wednesday, we see that forming across the southern plains. I think we could get some strong to severe storms anywhere from the Ozarks across into the Red River Valley, and especially Oklahoma, portions of Kansas, and northern and north central Texas. That looks to be the focal point for some severe weather, where we get enough warmth and moisture from the Gulf with a upper level system clipping in from, you can see this little dip in the jet stream pattern right here. That's a little bit of an upper level feature, and then also a surface front. And I can go to the regular GFS and show you that, switching over towards Wednesday. Indicates a little bit of a frontal system and surface low pressure developing as that ejects from the Rockies. So that corresponds with our upper level features and likely bringing that mix of instability, humidity from the Gulf with cooler weather to the north, and then the shear with the overspreading jet stream pattern here. And the interesting thing is that first system kicks out, but the pattern kind of stays in place. We can see that high pressure down here near Florida and the Bahamas. That continues to help that moisture return. So even after that little lead system kind of kicks out and kicks up into the Great Lakes on Thursday, potentially some thunderstorms. I don't know if we're going to get a full severe weather event out here. A little early to tell for that, but at least some rain and storms kicking into the Ohio Valley. We look again for moisture return back into the central states, and we can see another dip in the jet stream with an upper level feature coming in by especially Friday and Saturday, overspreading that same area. And even this GFS Ensemble kind of shows a bigger dip in the jet stream over the weekend, next weekend. That could be a little bit of a wider spread severe event from the southern plains, potentially into the Mississippi Valley, the Ozarks. We'll have to watch for this. We're not at the point yet in the models where I can pinpoint and say, you know, oh, Oklahoma City, you're going to have a tornado next week. This is not one of those clickbait type of videos. I'm just showing you the upper level patterns just to give you a general idea. It's going to be a lot of refining until then, and we'll see as we get closer to the event. The Storm Prediction Center will likely put out outlooks for severe outlooks, and those will change around from day to day and even within days as they get new data as well. Fairly typical, a couple days out that you might see a bigger outlook, and then that gets condensed or adjusted, shifted east, west, north, south as we get closer to the event. It does look like next weekend could be a potential severe weather event, or at least multiple days of thunderstorms, multiple days of potentially strong to severe storms across the southern plains and at least the southern and mid Mississippi valleys, which would be generally where we can start to expect severe weather into March and into meteorological spring. This pattern does look conducive of that. Again, we can see by next Sunday, we have a pretty deep trough in the west and a deeper solid ridge in the east. And when we start to get into spring and summer and see that pattern of trough in the west, ridge in the east, it's that battleground between those two air masses with warm air drawn up from the south and drawn up from the Gulf. And that interacts with the cool air coming in from the north and the west, with also dry air introduced from the west. That looks to continue through at least about Monday next week. And then we're getting a little far out beyond the 200 to 250 hours. So beyond this point, it gets a little bit questionable of what we're going to see. We may get some of the models, and this one also kind of shows it, that trough starts to move east a little bit and get another little blast of cooler weather. But again, it's still kind of early to tell, but just know that even if it warms up across the east, winter may still not be done. And again, just because we're in meteorological spring doesn't mean the winter weather is done yet. There is a chance by, say, the middle of March, that, 12th to 14th to 15th, where we get a little bit of a cool shot in here with some more wintry weather and potentially a break from a little more active pattern. But again, that could change too. This is really far out. So just take it with a slight grain of salt at this point. Looking at the GFS, I do want to show, this is just that one model run, but it shows that warm air starting to build across the central and southern US as we start to get that moisture return in here, and that surface low developing on Wednesday. Potentially some strong to severe thunderstorms on Wednesday. That starts to kick into the Ohio Valley into Thursday. Potentially some strong to severe thunderstorms from the Ohio Valley down into the mid-Mississippi Valley. We'll keep an eye on that one. Could be some more winter weather to the north of that. So that is something to keep our eye on as well. This would be a warmer system, so likely pushing snow and winter weather up solidly into New England and also into more of like the northern Great Lakes. But to the south, we could see that severe. And then we look for the next trough ejection and a system developing as it ejects from the Rockies, another low pressure forming. And this would be that Friday, Saturday. Timing could shift around as well. I mentioned the location could shift, but also the timing can shift. But sometime between, I think, Friday and Sunday, we have to watch for another round of severe weather across the central states with some strong to severe thunderstorms. And then as that kicks out, we see kind of a general, again, we're getting into a little bit more of a question mark pattern a little far out, but we could see another kind of trough ejection, a low form at the surface, and create more stormy weather for Sunday, Monday kind of time frame. And yeah, beyond that, we're kind of getting into fantasy land. So I'm not going to continue that out too far, but this model also shows a little bit of what the ensemble was showing, with a little bit of a cooler pattern, potentially getting in here towards the middle of March. So we can see, at least it looks like it's going to be likely an active pattern to start March for the first 10 to 15 days or so. And then again, middle of March may get a break from not just strong to severe weather, but also the warmer weather. Real quick, I will take a look at the Euro model, and we can see again a very similar pattern. I think the Euro and the GFS are fairly similar, but by Wednesday, the Euro also showing some thunderstorms in this general area in the southern plains as well as the mid-Mississippi Valley. The Euro's timing is a little bit different, and the Euro also suppresses this, where the GFS takes it kind of up into the Great Lakes. The Euro keeps it more into the Gulf Coast. It pushes it down into the Texas Gulf Coast and portions of the lower Mississippi Valley. So we will see about that. That is a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a diverging agreement there between the GFS and the Euro, at least. Although the Euro does stretch a little bit of this activity up into the Ohio River Valley, not quite as far north as it looks like the GFS showed, and then keeps the storm and activity down here into parts of, again, the mid and lower Mississippi valleys, and then also into Texas. And then it kind of resets, just like the GFS does, with another low pressure ejecting by Friday and the weekend. And again, kind of keeping it in that same general location. Mid-Mississippi Valley, lower Missouri Valley, down into portions of the Southern Plains. So there are definitely differences in these models, but there are some areas where they have general agreement, which also piques my interest in being able to call a little bit early that there's likely going to be an increase in severe weather activity as we get into next week. An uptick in severe activity, an uptick in thunderstorm activity. It does look like, potentially another trough ejection, another organized system in the Euro here on Monday. So both the GFS and the Euro are showing a parade of systems through the first week or so, or the first 10 to 15 days of March. And then putting us out into fantasy land a little bit, but can get some ideas of general patterns. Both the Euro and GFS do show a little bit of that pattern reversal again at about that 13th to 15th kind of range of March, with a deeper trough of cool air digging into the east and especially the northeast and Great Lakes, a pretty substantial ridge building across the west. That pattern is the reverse. That would shut down the large-scale severe activity by the middle of the month if we get a giant ridge across the west. Warm weather across the west could see, if this verifies, it could see some record warmth across the southwest, and then potentially some pretty cold air across the Great Lakes and the northeast. May not be fully done with winter across some of those locations. And I do want to look at the dew points. This is another way to look at it. Once again, we see by Tuesday and into Wednesday, we see those dew points returning to those areas that the upper level features and the surface features showed developing a system. And that is also indicating that there is a potential there for some severe weather. Again, a little far out, but we do see a hints of a surface low developing here across these high plains, the southern high plains, the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. And then it would be a trailing kind of cold front dry line combination with warm moist air out ahead of that. This is where we would see our higher chances of severe activity. This is going around on social media. I've seen some different looks of this. This is the Northern Illinois University Accumulated Supercell Composite. It's just kind of a indicator of where we could see supercells. This does not mean tornado outbreak there. This just shows you where the environment is potentially conducive of supercells. And that also doesn't mean that they're tornadic supercells, although likely could be. As we saw yesterday, there was many supercells across the parts of the Deep South, but only one tornado occurred because they were elevated supercells producing hail and some damaging wind. But this composite does show generally where I think the most chances of severe weather are going to be occurring over the next early part of March. And that would be from about the mid-Mississippi Valley down across especially northern and north central Texas. And again, this is also kind of the ensemble, the composite parameter, but there are different members within here that show different solutions. This one could be a little bit more truthful as well, how it puts a little bit more activity back up into the north central Texas area, just based on the look. That first day or so, that Wednesday kind of time frame, could be up in this area for some more severe weather. But I do agree with the parameters after that. We kind of push a lot of that severe weather back a little bit south and east. And like the Euro model showed, I don't think we're going to get a ton up in this area. Could get a couple scenarios where there's high shear, low cape that produce some QLCS or low top supercells. But generally, if we're looking for the beefier severe weather, it's going to be down in that area. And just flipping through the ensembles, don't fall for clickbait. Someone could post the giant red blob and say, put a heading tornado outbreak across the map. Just be aware of who you're getting your weather information from. But again, this doesn't even show that there's going to be a tornado outbreak. This just shows where parameters are more conducive of supercellular development. And a lot of the data that we just went over on those models is also supported by the climatological outlooks. You can see here these colors, the deeper, the reddish color, the more likelihood of being above average in temperature. Right now, an 80% chance of above average temperatures for much of the area from the Great Lakes all the way down across the south and southeast and the lower Mississippi Valley. Even parts of the Northeast and the Great Lakes look like are going to warm up after at least that initial bout of cool weather and some winter weather to start the week. Within that 8 or 10 day forecast, we get a pretty good blob of warmer temperatures. And again, with that warmer temperature, we can also tell that there is a likelihood of increased weather across that same area where we are expecting at least some severe weather potential. We can see this corridor from the Great Lakes all the way down into the Texas and the lower Mississippi Valley, a very high chance of being above average in precipitation and 60% chance by the Climate Prediction Center for above average precip. And yeah, you can see a lot of the east and even the central part of the country looks like are going to experience a above average temperature, but also above average precipitation. Unfortunately, some areas that have experienced drought right now, Florida is really bad in drought. That area may be kind of normal to potentially even below normal still, but that area not seeing a significant chance of above average rainfall. So areas that really need the rain in Florida and even the parts of the southeast, not seeing a lot. But for at least the first part of March, it does look like a warmer and wetter pattern for especially the eastern 2/3 of the country across the lower 48. As far as severe weather, there's not a lot of chances of severe weather to end February. Again, there may be an isolated severe thunderstorm across, especially I think the Florida Peninsula late on Friday as we're filming this. Potentially, I think the best chances across that I-4 corridor for any isolated severe thunderstorm. And then going into the day on Saturday, a couple areas of potentially some storms. There is a marginal risk now for areas in southeast Florida, including Miami. So keep an eye to the sky there. Potentially some much beneficial rainfall across Florida Peninsula on Saturday. And then we go into Sunday, and that's where we do have a couple chances of some of storms, but at least right now, no severe risk highlighted. Parts of the West Coast, parts of the central states, and then also still in southeast Florida. Just hot off the presses today. Nothing for day 5, but day 6 does have a risk outlined by the Storm Prediction Center for parts of Oklahoma and North Texas, that same area that we were just highlighting on the models and in the climate outlooks for some severe weather. And this is what I was also saying earlier. This is going to change. It's not set in stone. This is a very early look at day 6, and this could easily shift around. It could go north, it can go south, it can go, east, west. It can be shifted around as we get more data in, but at the very least, it means this area is conducive of some uptick in severe weather like we were talking about. If you're anywhere kind of in this area, but also around this area, in this general, I think, area here, has a better chance of getting some strong to severe storms by the middle to late next week, and probably even extending out a little bit further towards the Mississippi Valley by later next week and next weekend. Just know that it's also being looked at by the experts at the Storm Prediction Center. And then we'll keep an eye on it too. Likely have some live streams coming up for severe weather live streams. So definitely click that bell icon, get notifications when we go live, and also post new forecast videos. So that's a look at the breakdown, a pretty long WeatherCast quick cast, but a not so quick cast. We looked at the warm up to start meteorological spring. And that warm-up does bring an increase in the severe weather with potential for a couple rounds of severe weather. Again, at this time, I don't see a big widespread severe outbreak. I see these little impulses kind of kicking out of the Rockies, and depending on how they are paired with those upper level features, they'll likely have enough shear instability and moisture to have kind of regionalized severe weather, but nothing that's going to be stretching from, Minnesota all the way down to Louisiana, like we sometimes see later in the spring. These are going to be more regional and more into that area that is typical this time of year. I think we have the best chance of seeing some severe weather in kind of this area in here to start the March timeframe and to start the meteorological spring. If you're in these areas, just make sure you know your weather plan. Have your plan of action, go over it with your family, know where to go, have a plan of action at your place of business or your school, have one at home, and just make sure you know where you're going to go for severe weather. For tornadoes, that's that lowest level into your room, away from the doors and windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. If you don't have a basement or a storm shelter, that's okay. You got to go to that interior, small, windowless space. Typically, it's a hall closet or a bathroom. The bathrooms are really good because, especially if it's an interior bathroom, you can get in the tub, and that'll help protect you a little bit with the fiberglass hull of the tub, and get some blankets and some pillows and protect your head. You can also grab bike helmets, hockey helmets, motorcycle helmets. So thanks for joining us on this WeatherCast USA Quickcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click that bell icon to get notifications when we go live or post new forecast videos, or also morning weather discussions. And then also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, WXCastUSA, and we'll see you on the next Quickcast.